back. We're here with Steve from Foodzee. Steve, it is a pleasure to have you on the podcast. We met on LinkedIn a couple months ago, so thank you so much. I'm very excited to dive into your app and what you're building.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me here.
Yes. So can you dive into why did you create Foodzee?
Absolutely. So I'm a parent of two daughters, and when they were young, I was traveling a lot, had a busy work schedule, and one of my daughters was much more selective or picky than my other daughter, and I was feeling like I needed to solve a problem. My daughter wouldn't eat very much. My other daughter would eat a lot of different foods and at a similar pace as my wife and I eat. So I felt like there was a problem I needed to solve. And mealtime was definitely problematic in our household. So I started making up these little games. I had gone online to find things and wasn't finding any particular solution other than like a fork shaped like an airplane or a spoon shaped like a boat. So I just started making up games based on what we might have otherwise played during family mealtime. But when I used just a regular board game, it was a distraction and still didn't get my daughters to engage with their food. So I had to make the games about food as well. But that was where I started changing both my attitude for mealtime and my daughter's willingness to come to eat at the table when she could throw tantrums even before she knew what was for dinner. And because of that, I knew I needed to change part of what I was bringing to the table, not just food, but my attitude and her attitude, so that the environment could be more welcoming. And initially, I was focused just on my daughter that was a picky eater, but my older daughter called out the hypocrisy of the focus on just the one kid that was creating what I would view of, as a parent as a problem. And once she called that out, then that's where it definitely changed from focus on one-on-one time to family meal time. And that really was the starting point of what has become Foodsy.
And why do you think gamifying eating time for your kids or other people's kids is such a helpful way to get them to eat?
That's a great question because the focus on gamifying is not a new thing. Where I feel like it really helps bring about what I'll call a solution, and it's a little different than a solution to the problem of picky eating. The problem is the sentiment at mealtime that disengaged us and started really making our dinner table a place of anxiety, which I didn't want it to be. It wasn't like that when I grew up. It was where you get to connect and find out about people's days and dreams, etc. And that's where I think it makes a bigger difference. There's a lot of different feeding therapy sort of mentality of how mealtime should be, whether it's authoritative, whether it's different modalities with preparation of the food or how you're referring to food. And what we look at is trying to recognize a lot of these different motivations. But realistically, if you can bring more joy to mealtime, which is what our app is doing, then all the rest of the vocabulary you're using, the quality of the macronutrients, all these other important components now have a chance to enter into that moment. And that's where it's really helping both in our family household, but a lot of others as well.
Yeah, and I love how you touch on not just the eating part of it, but I feel like you also mentioned the struggling with just mealtime in general for families, which I feel like a lot of families have a very scattered kind of mealtime, either where their kid is doing homework and they're eating, or they're eating and then their kids playing, or I feel like it's a very kind of broken system, especially here in America, just in general with either the jobs or school. And you do, and I think this app in a passive manner does a very good job of bringing the family back together, having them sit down, having them share their day. Could you kind of talk about that aspect of it as well?
Absolutely. So when I originally was building it, I had it as a physical game and brought in various components from like Milton Bradley and Hasbro and all these different games based on what I was desperately trying to create at the time. And when I was creating it, I wasn't looking to build it into a business. I was working in corporate America as a medical supply and device sales guy, and then I pivoted over to a healthcare services company, and I wasn't looking to build this as a business. In fact, once my daughter, that was a selective eater, really had enough food groups covered to get me through a week of a variety, I put all the games away. I felt like success, and I put them away. But when I would be out to dinner with my daughters and wife, and my daughters would hear a meltdown happening at a nearby table, they'd be like, "Dad, that family needs your games." And it was a comment that when I heard it and I looked over at it, I felt empathy for them. I'd been there. But I also felt like if by chance I happened to have had the travel versions of it, I also felt like offering it as a solution would be very judgmental. I don't have any trust with that family. I don't have a connection to that family. And it wasn't until a friend came to visit and stayed with us that his kid had that problem, or again, had that mealtime experience, that I realized, you know what, let me get these out and let me see if it can help, because there was already trust there. It was a judgment-free zone. And that's one of the things that really was holding me back initially on creating it. And when I looked to create it as a physical board game with a digital app interface for some of the parent tools, that's when I realized parents nowadays with young kids are not looking at the phone as always a problem. It can be a solution. And once that started changing in my mind and they started asking for the games to be digitized, that's when I realized the phone can also be a tool to bring families together. And once that started happening, that's when it started taking shape in a much more both scalable as well as entrepreneurial kind of solution. And the distractions are still always available. You can have a kid distracted, you can have a parent distracted. That can still happen. But when they know they have a turn, when it's engaging a little bit more fun at mealtime, and if there's a bite that a kid gets a little anxious about or a little upset about, and you can start feeling the vibe change at the table, well, that's where the parent tools come into effect. And we've got a joke button that has a whole variety of jokes. Because once the stress starts elevating for the kid and the parent, it's hard to be funny and come up
Yeah.
with those creative moments. So the app has parent tools that are intentionally helping just give a little different moment of enjoyment to reset that mood, to bring it back to the early moment of a curiosity about food, of an enjoyment of being at the table for an experience.
And what has surprised you most with the people that are actively using your app?
I'm glad you asked that question, because when I created it, again, I looked at my daughter that was a picky eater, selective eater, as a problem to solve. And I built it with that in mind, because our meal times were lasting pretty long. And whether it was my wife that would want to get up from the table, my daughter, myself, any one of us that wanted to just kind of be done with it, would happen at any increment of time, but could be 30 minutes, could be an hour, could be an hour and a half. And at some point, everybody loses their patience. But I looked at it trying to help change that experience. And as we've had feeding therapists and other parents testing it, the feedback I'm getting that surprised me the most was I was looking to speed up mealtime to so that everybody was eating in about 45 minutes, was kind of how I felt like. But other parents have given me feedback that they have kids that are overweight and they're eating so fast they have never even known what the hunger cues were as they're eating, and they would eat not only as much as the parents might have given them or they gave themselves, they would want second helpings and just all this food. And parents have given me feedback that the games are kind of pumping the brakes on how fast their kids eating. And that wasn't a problem I was thinking about or a solution that I thought needed to be solved. I just looked at how my game worked for what our family experience was. But that flip side of the coin of kids that were overeating or even parents that are overeating and thinking, oh, we got to get through mealtime so we can go do X, we can go do Y, we can go do other things. And it's like, oh, let us slow down. Have a moment to connect about your days, about your dreams. And by slowing down mealtime and letting our bodies realize, okay, we've just eaten X number of calories, and the parents being able to say, hey, Foodzee shows a fullness meter, and Foodzee's gotten full. You know, all this protein has helped you get stronger. All this fruit and vegetables have helped you get taller and faster. And, all these little cues that are within the nutritional kind of moments of the food groups. And the parents are getting a chance to say, let's go for a walk. Let's go throw the football around. Let's go do something. And again, our target age range is about 3 to 8. So maybe it's, hey, these foods are going to help you go learn how to ride a bike. They're going to go have these moments of engagement. And that's where, when the fullness meter has made it across and you take a break from mealtime, it'll slowly start going back to saying Foodsy's hungry and giving those little cues. But at the same time, it's giving both parents as well as kids a moment of time to go engage, have a little bit of fun together, and that's where the bites add up to points, and those points can be used in a no or low cost experience that we give parents some suggestions on based on the age range, and that's helping engage what to do based on the meal. And, with the kids' hobbies, the parents will get some ideas that say, oh, this is what your food is doing for you. And that's an important piece that a lot of parents are aware of all their learnings, but the kids don't have that same teaching yet. They don't know what their food groups are necessarily doing for them. In our school district here in Boulder County, they do try and have a little bit of food education built within the school's curriculum and the cafeteria. But at the same time, it has to come from parents as well to build that understanding, to connect it a little more to what's going on within their household and their family environment. And that's been a piece that really has resonated with most of the parents in states all across the country. I've lived in 6 different states, and initially those were our beta testers, but now it's grown to much more than that. And we're coast to coast, not all 50 states by any means yet, but we're getting there, and we're excited about it.
And what I find very interesting is this app not only gets the kids involved on the eating side of things and helping them with eating, either slowing down or speeding up, depending on the kid, but it it keeps them educated, or it gets them educated on what they're putting in their body, which is, as you mentioned, very important. And then it also engages them outside of eating time. Was this planned from the beginning to be more than just a eating app of like, hey, I want to have all these other things outside of just improving their eating?
Part of it was there as a core plan. The other pieces just tied in as my kids have continued to get older, when I recognized what resonated with them either in that moment or that they recalled later. And based on the age group, it was very interesting to see around the age of 5, when my daughter went into kindergarten, her interest on the competitive side of it started coming up a little bit more. But it wasn't until she was a first grader trying to get across those monkey bars that, when I talked about her being stronger, she's like, well, help me cross the monkey bars, that I realized she wants to know what food's doing for her. And just saying, oh, this helps you get stronger, didn't necessarily resonate as much as if I connected it to what she was most interested in. Will it make me faster on the soccer field? Will it help me go faster on my bike when she struggles to get up the hill? And that's part of where it's definitely helping parents have a opportunity to tie it together. And those are pieces that younger age kids want a more immediate connection to what it's meaning. And not trying to manipulate the kid on eating healthy food only, but giving that opportunity to say, yes, protein's a building block for muscles. It'll help you get stronger. Fruits are an opportunity to help you get faster. The complex carbs are just simply called grains to help you have energy, a few hours from now or tomorrow morning, depending on when the meal is. Those are the opportunities that the app presents. It's not a nutritional, you know, high level PhD kind of education. It's these little moments that help kids resonate from a source that's fun. It's a, characterized pineapple. You can kind of see here on my shirt a little bit of Foodzee. Like it's a fun, engaging moment. And those are pieces where as a parent in the thick of raising kids, I was not as creative as what the app is now. So when you say, did you have all this in mind? I had a few ideas. And as my kids started getting older and they brought up moments of things I would say, but hadn't said in a while, that's where it started being something that resonated and I wanted to integrate into the app.
It's like you mentioned, parents either don't have the time or they don't have the creativity or they don't have the energy at the end of the day. And I like how you mentioned how it ties it to a why, and a very easy why of like, hey, I want to cross the monkey bars. I want to run faster on the soccer field. So it takes this huge learning lesson and really puts it down into a place where a kid can internalize it, realize it's important. Because I also think that that's what we're lacking as well, of like, oh, you need to eat healthy, but it's like, why do I need to eat healthy? That's going to drive the kid to enjoy mealtime more, to want to actually put healthy things in their body. So I think there's a lot more importance to what you're saying besides just helping a picky eater. So there's a lot more, that kind of goes around it. Um, you have anything you want to add to that?
I was just gonna say you're absolutely right, and part of what has helped or resonated with the parents is recognizing if they're healthy eaters themselves and they're checking each box of their macronutrients and their micronutrients and tracking all sorts of stuff. Those are some parents that start off really frustrated if their kids aren't mirroring that behavior. And so the game helps enjoy that. But most everybody I know, they're not staying healthy or trying to get healthy just for their own benefit. And so for the parents that want to be healthier themselves, this is also kind of helping them into it without it being a highly invasive, weight loss kind of an app that isn't fun. It might be functional and it might be helpful, but it's just not as fun as Foodsy. And that's part of what is enjoyable within this family environment is it can be different helpfulness moments depending on who the player is, depending on who the user is. And when parents are able to model fun, enjoyable moments, it also puts the kids on a different mental health trajectory where they're not looking at their parents that are trying to constantly diet to lose weight or being super restrictive in order to build muscle. It's a moment where it covers the food groups. And when you're done eating one food group, then that food group can get turned off. So the algorithms of the game doesn't keep coming up with those. And then as the bite tracker accumulates, the points, then the parents can say, all right, here's the reward. We get extra time to go do this. We get extra time to go down to the park. We get extra time to draw or to paint. Whatever those moments might be that resonate with a kid, the food groups are going to help them become their best selves. And that balance is really what we try and help focus on through it.
Love it, Steve. I love it. Um, Now to kind of go into your entrepreneur journey, which you actually mentioned twice earlier in the podcast. Foodsee is now your second business that was born out of your own frustrations. Can you kind of dive into the mindset of Steve when it comes to taking a personal frustration and then turning it into a business?
I can, and it kind of stretches out depending on my willingness to go after it. So my first business that I created was mobile anesthesia. And that was born because I was on the patient side of healthcare in an environment and industry that I knew really well, but and kept encountering a problem. And it wasn't until I started sharing a little bit of the frustration I was having that I realized how many parents my age were either delaying medical care or were frustrated with all the expenses of some of the procedures that mobile anesthesia allowed them to have those procedures done in an office setting. Whether it's a dental office or a medical office, we brought that up as something that could help fix a problem and lower the cost of that healthcare procedure by as much as 90%.
Wow.
And I had the idea, but I didn't know quite how to solve it when I was first having it. And it took me a couple of years to then pinpoint, okay, this is how I can solve it. And these are the people I need to bring into the business in order to solve it because I'm not clinical. So, starting a mobile anesthesia company when you're not clinical has a lot of barriers to entry. But getting the right people as part of the organization really helped me then start to solve that problem. Very similarly to Foodsy, that entrepreneurial mindset was first just my own household problem or my household experience. I'm trying to be careful by saying that picky eating is a problem that needs to be solved. It's really not. The problem is first with a parent, understanding what is going on and creating that. And so my game fixed me as my problem, not my young kid that's a selective eater as her problem. And that's a perspective that really needs to be made aware of because a lot of parents think this is how I was raised, and I'm going to make my kid eat this food. And if they don't eat it for breakfast, or if they don't eat it for dinner, they're going to get it the next day for breakfast, and it's not going to taste better. And so it's that coerciveness, threatening, even bribery way that is a very different experience. But that's what I was starting to project, and it was the frustration that I was having, and sometimes saying in front of my kids that when there's other parents around, and it was not mealtime necessarily, but it was, I got to go make dinner and I got to figure out how I'm going to make one thing for one kid and another thing for another kid. And well, I'll probably just eat something that's left over because after I'm a short order cook, this is where it is at our meal. And realizing, okay, the the moments that I didn't want to sometimes even talk about as a parent was something that was absolutely shared in most other parents' households. But social media isn't what it was back then, or if it was, I simply just wasn't paying attention to it. Where I just saw social media a long time ago as you put your best experiences of life on the web, and that's all you would show. Well, I know it started making changes when people are like, "Oh, this person had a perfect life online," and now it comes out really they have a lot of problems. Well, now social media is getting more balanced and parents are putting like online, hey, this is all my kids eating. and they know their kid's not going to thrive with that. And so our app is starting to have these little glimpses of how they're helping others. And that's where I think now will be a better time to bring it to market, both because I'm now more willing to do it. I've been more creative and I brought some of the right people into the company to help with this and recognize here's where saying it this way versus that way might resonate more with the parents, or more importantly resonate with the kids, because now they want to play, they want to feed themselves and see Foodsy also feeling more energetic. And the expressions that Foodsy gives, whether you're eating protein and flexing a muscle or other food groups, and having a better energy level with that, is what's helping that entrepreneurial journey resonate to say, yes, this is a market opportunity that we can help improve the mealtime vibes to help
Yeah,
kids eat better, help parents be more engaged, and have just a whole host of different benefits.
love it. I have one more question for you, Steve. We could talk
Sure.
about this for like forever. I have like a bunch of notes. I could just like uh could just keep asking you questions, but we have one more.
Okay.
What life lesson have you had to learn the hard way throughout your life?
What life lesson? I think the biggest lesson is focusing too far ahead. When I wanted to start my first business, and now when I wanted to start Foodsy, focusing too far ahead on where you want it to get to can sometimes be a problem, because as you're making small steps forward of progress with anything, if you're not still both grateful for the moment and being engaged in the present, you can miss a lot. And there's moments where I knew I missed moments that are definitely enjoyable, but I was focused a little further down the road than I should have been. And that was something that I recognize in myself, and think that's a perspective that a lot of people probably struggle with but don't know is a problem. And so in my case it was looking forward. Other people sometimes they're always looking back. And it's really, if we can just all get a little bit more present
Yeah.
in today's moments and experiences, and recognizing where that's taking us on a journey, that the journey is the reward. It's not just that destination. And that's a piece that has shown itself when I'm on a big hike, and every once in a while I just have to take a breath and look at where I've come from at the trailhead and the views I've got at that moment, not just when I make it to a summit. And those are pieces that definitely are a life lesson that I have had to learn a couple times the hard way, and it resonates. Every once in a while I still need a reminder.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that has helped me improve who I am.
I feel like as entrepreneurs and business owners, this is something we all struggle with because we're so goal oriented of like we achieve one goal and then it's on to the next one. It's like, okay, there's always things we have to do. And I know with myself, I very rarely, if at all, take a step back and be like, oh my gosh, look at all that I've done because we're so focused on what's next? What's next? What else do I have to do? What else is there to keep pushing me toward my goals? But these goals that I've accomplished now, Easton 3 years ago would have been so proud. But now I'm just so focused on like what's next. Like, you know, what are we doing next? So Steve, those are the questions I have for you. How can people find you, and what is one thing you want to leave people with?
Yes, people can find me both on LinkedIn as well as a number of other socials. The best place to find Foodsy is at foodsygames.com, and in the app stores both for Apple and Android. that's the best way to get the app. If again you want to reach out to me, I'm most active on LinkedIn. Definitely have other social platforms that I can be found on, and being able to leave folks with is how the nutrition is definitely an important component, but the connection that gets built is way more important to our relationships than just what we eat. And I think that's a point where, as we're trying to make mealtime a game night, it's for the connection as well as the nutrition.
Love it. Great last statement. Steve, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. If you want to stay in the room after, and then we can chat for like 3 to 5 minutes.
Sure.
But I just want to say thank you for coming on. And I'm excited just for like everything for your future. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.